instead of me having an unconscious fear that compels me to attack you, I might say, okay, yep, there's that reaction that I have when I feel like someone is attacking me, but are they really attacking me? No, they just have a different opinion. So I don't have to react this way. I can see that and I can let that be, but let me just get curious about this. Let me try and understand this other person's point of view before I attack them or start defending my point of view.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Kristen Donnelly, one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. And here at Abbey Research, we deeply believe that curiosity can change the world because it's the only thing that ever has. We change our minds and how we move through the world through stories and relationships, not statistics or shaming. And all stories and relationships start with curiosity. This series is in service of that. It's called Welcome to My World, and I get the privilege of chatting to fascinating folks who are different than me, which is literally everybody, from all over the world and all walks of life about something in their world that if we knew more about it, our human experience would be richer. And today's guest is absolutely no exception to that. I am joined by Andrew Bennett, who is a keynote speaker, consultant, coach, two-time TEDx presenter, and a professor at the American University in Washington, D.C., where I almost applied, speaking in leadership, organizational culture, and personal development. Also, not for nothing, a world-class magician and a member of London's Magic Circle. He's on a mission to revitalize the human spirit, and in doing so, has worked with over 120 organizations, including a few you may have heard of, like Google, Microsoft, and Habitat for Humanity. And his first TED Talk, The Magic of Words, which is one of my favorites, has been viewed over 500,000 times. I am so honored to have you here. Andrew, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me, Kristen. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. I love a good mutual admiration society. It always works well for the SEO.
Yes.
Let me kick off. I'd love to know, let's start with the magic, honestly. So I'd love to know why magic? What's the journey there?
Well, I started out doing magic when I was 7 years old. I got a magic set for Christmas from my grandparents. I was raised by my grandparents, and my granddad sat down on the floor with me and we cracked it open, and he helped me learn how to use the magic, which magic is not immediately gratifying. So for a 7-year-old kid that doesn't deliver immediate gratification, it was really great that Grandpa helped me learn. So I got very serious about magic. It just took root with me. I grew up in a very small town of 421 people. So I was a big fish in a little pond. You know, I think a kid doing magic was kind of a novelty, and there was the cuteness factor. And so by the time I was 14, I had my own TV show. I put myself through college doing magic. I never thought that I would be a professional magician, but magic was super important to me. One of my first jobs, my second job out of college, I went to work for Ross Perot, former presidential candidate. And Ross didn't know I was a magician when he hired me. I became his personal assistant. I was his personal assistant for the first 6 months I worked for the company. And then he was my mentor for 10 years as I moved through the company. My goal was to kind of climb the ladder.
Yeah.
And I did magic for the office holiday party. And he said afterwards, he said, "Andy, that's pretty clever how you do that magic. From now on, whenever you do a business presentation, I want you to use magic in it." And so he gave me my first opportunity to do that a couple months later, and it was a big deal. General Motors had just bought his company, and he invited me to do a presentation to the General Motors board of directors. So I was 23 years old. And
Nice.
yeah,
Talk about not being a big fish in a small pond anymore. That's
right.
quite a leap.
Hello.
Yeah.
And so, not only was he taking a risk by putting a 23-year-old kid in front of these executives of a major, I think at the time GM was the number one employer in the US. So here I am. And then on top of that, the risk of having this kid do a magic trick. And so, the story of that is hilarious and it's great, but it's for another time. It was a huge hit. And when I kind of had that moment of magic in the magic trick, and it was connected to a business message, but when the magic point came along, it was pandemonium. This was a gigantic boardroom with a King Arthur round table.
Yeah.
Very intimidating. And they were like little kids. They stood up and knocked over chairs and pounded on the tables. And I looked back at Ross and he was just going,
told you so, kid. Told you
so. So I kept working at that. So it's been, I don't know what it's been, 36, 37 years I've been working on that. And as my focus of my work shifted, back then, my focus was on management and strategy and real kind of core business stuff. But then as my work progressed and evolved and my own personal development evolved, it's taken me to this place where now at 60 years old, it's a very, very integrated part of my work, which is really around deep personal development and particularly working your way through suffering. And so it's a central part. I have a model that I use in my work and it's built around magic. And so I had breakfast yesterday with the CEO of a local charity. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. And I had been recommended to speak at a fundraiser for her organization. It's called the Campagna Center for anybody that's interested in a good cause. I had breakfast with her yesterday and she said, I got to be honest, when our mutual friend recommended you, and she said, he's a magician, but he's good at communicating a message. She said, I was more than skeptical. I just thought that sounded goofy. And she said, then what you did for us blew me away. She said, you totally changed my concept of magic. So it's a central part of who I have been pretty much my whole life. And so I love that I'm able to use it in service of other people.
I love it. When I first, we also have a mutual friend that introduced us, and even before, and I'd already seen your TEDx when Trisha mentioned that she thought we'd be a good fit together. And I told her that the only magician like I had even really encountered was only in pop culture, that I've never really seen a live show or anything else. I think about Job from Arrested Development and, like it's illusions, Michael. But
painful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, that entire show is painful.
In a good way.
In a good way. Exactly. But at the core of my curiosity for this is, can you unpack for me why, like how magic teaches us about ourselves in such a profound way?
Well, this is why I think you're a great interviewer, Kristen. That's a powerful question, which great interviewers and coaches and therapists do. Magic, when I was in college doing magic, and it was just purely entertainment. It was a magic show. But I hit this point where I kind of wondered why. For whatever reason, it's like a magician's existential crisis, because I thought, okay, we are people, magicians are people who can do the impossible. We're doing magic with a capital M. And I thought, if that were true, why would I pull a rabbit out of a hat? Why would I do card tricks? If I had real magic powers, I would use it for something useful, something meaningful. And so that kind of cracked open this quest for me to find out if there's more, just to learn about magic and the origin of magic. And so I really did a deep dive into the history of magic. And where it took me was, well, it took me to the Library of Congress, for one thing. There's a rare book in the Library of Congress that talks about the roots of magic, and it's connected to medicine women, medicine men, shamans, who back in tribal communities were actually the spiritual stewards of those communities. They were the healers, both spiritually and physically and mentally. So they were the healers, and they would use kind of rudimentary magic tricks, like pick up a stone, put it in my other hand, the stone is gone. So when the patient, if you will, sees that the stone has vanished, there for an instant, and you still have this when you watch magic today, we all do, for an instant, inside us, something is aware of, oh my goodness, anything is possible. I just saw something that I know is impossible, but it was possible. Now, nowadays, we tend to just very quickly go to, how did he do that? But before that, every single one of us, before that, there is that nanosecond of wow. And I think that's a sacred moment, not to be melodramatic, but
I think wonder is a sacred concept. And it's one of the things that some of the oldest religious traditions incorporate wonder about the divine, about higher power. And this is indigenous traditions as well. Yep. It's one of the things I always grieved growing up as a Protestant, that we didn't do wonder in the same way that a lot of other traditions did. It's a sacred, I think it is a sacred concept, because it reminds us that we actually have no idea what we're doing here.
Exactly. And you know, kind of a pet peeve of mine is the people who say, you know, how did you do that? Because it kind of, again, not to be melodramatic, but it kind of breaks my heart, because I feel like, gosh, I wish you could stay in the wonder, in the mystery, and just kind of linger in that and think to yourself, wow, there is this mysterious force that operates in the universe that we don't even know what's possible, and that can open things up for us. So that was obviously a life-changing experience for me to realize that. And ever since then, I've been on this quest to elevate magic beyond entertainment. And that is not to downplay magicians who do magic for entertainment at all. I mean, I love a good magic show. I love a master magician. I love just straight up magic.
Yeah.
And for me, I want it to be something more. And so over the years, I've met a magician here or there that was using magic for a deeper purpose, and we would become friends. And then a few years ago, I reached the point where I had this group of magician friends that were doing this kind of work. And I formed a group called Magic on Purpose.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so there are 10 of us. One of us is in Paris, one's in London, one's in Toronto. We're all over the world. And each of us has a different message. Anthony, up in Detroit, is using magic to teach young people about mental health. He's a 3-time suicide survivor. He was into physical harm to cope with his inner pain, and he's transparent about that in his talks. And he's a great magician, and he uses magic to kind of move the message along. So there are a few people out there, and I feel that my role is to be a leader in the magic community to advance magic in this way.
I love it. I mean, I'm totally that person. Before our conversation, he'd be like, how did that happen? And now this has shifted my perception of magic for sure. I will know, I will do it. I will build a disciplinary practice to live in the wonder longer for sure.
Oh, good.
Which is something I think is really beautiful. And as you were talking, what I realized is that our work is so similar, and that what we want people to do is suspend how they always thought things have to be.
Yes.
And imagine what could be.
Yes.
And that's I mean, I've been saying it my entire life. My least favorite phrase of human existence is we've always done it that way. Yes. And it doesn't matter. Can we do something different? We might not be able to, but let's suspend that moment. Let's suspend the existing pattern. Let's ask if the system is actually working. And let's maybe dream of something different. And that makes so much sense to me as to why, especially in trauma, because a lot of trauma healing is about imagining that your brain can get rewired. It's imagining that the way you feel right now does not always have to be that way. It's allowing yourself to lean in to possibility in a way that your trauma brain tells you is impossible. And so you have to live in that wonder.
That is a very important point, what you just said about healing and being open to possibilities, because I think that's a parallel track to what was going on for me as I was a magician, as I became a business person. There was also my life was happening. And
it does that annoyingly. Yeah.
Right. I had a lot of loss in my childhood, and then kind of a recurrence of, like Job-like magnitude of loss when I hit 40. And so I've had a lot of loss. And so I've had a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And that's been an important part of me going deeper into magic. This model that I developed built around magic played the major role in my kind of rebirth at age 50, going through some significant healing. And so there was literally a one-to-one relationship between magic and healing.
Because, not to be melodramatic, to steal your word, but magic, like healing, is a kind of magic just in and of itself. And I think I try very hard to not view humanity through an entire logical lens, because I think we are walking miracles in so many ways. Like our bodies so frequently don't make sense. Our brains don't always make sense. Like none of us know what we're doing. We're all just vengeful bumper cars.
It's true.
Poking around into each other. We're all just doing our best. Some of us are doing it more evilly than other people, but we're all just doing our best. And the idea that we can, that the body heals itself is magic, full stop. Like, that's just magic.
It is.
And I've had enough surgery to know what that feels like. My body is a wonderland in the non-John Mayer sense. Like, it is always falling apart on some level. And so when I think about trauma to bodies and trauma to souls, any level of healing is magic, because it is that, oh my gosh, this conversation is this happens sometimes on this show, friends who have never joined me before. I have like revelations in the middle, and the poor guest has to go with me.
I'm with you.
But like,
I love it.
It's such a fresh way to talk about it that I think, especially for people who are in both, like now, Andrew and I are talking in August. And as we are speaking, you guys are hearing this in November, December, in 2029, I don't know. But as Andrew and I are talking, the Delta variant is raging throughout the United States. We're hearing stories of a Delta plus variant in India, for crying out loud. We are in the thick of COVID, and many people are pretending we are at the end of it. So this is both a global communal trauma and a very individual trauma. And those things are overlapping and intersecting in some ways that are paralyzing people instead of healing them.
Yes.
So if we can reframe this breath of possibility as part of leadership, as part of healing, as part of like, I'd imagine you're seeing a lot of this frontline with your students right now too. And how the trauma of a college campus is a specific trauma right now for college students. We work with college students at Charleston Southern University in Charleston. And the things we're seeing there, I'm very connected still with my alma mater at Baylor. Like, my gracious, these poor kids. But anyway, I think this reframe of wondrous possibility doesn't discount the existing pain.
Right.
It allows for
you can't.
You can't. That's rude. People try all the time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it allows for a new narrative.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Oh, I love it.
One of the big parts of my own healing was a massive reframe around a significant wound from when I was 16. I mentioned I was raised by my grandparents.
Yes.
My grandpa was my hero. And when I was 16, he took his own life. And that kind of reverberated through me for decades.
Of course it did.
Yeah. And I wasn't conscious of kind of this. I have what's known as, you're probably familiar with it, dysthymia, which is a low-grade chronic depression. It's just always there. I'm able to function just fine. And I have to manage this sense of, underlying, gosh, is this all hopeless?
Yeah.
So I'm managing that, but that trauma when I was 16, we never talked about Grandpa's suicide. And eventually there was an event, and again, that's for another time because it's a long story, but I had a moment of kind of breakthrough, and it was an instantaneous experience that I had when I went back to our farm, the farm where I grew up. And all of a sudden, the suffering was transformed into, I'm going to take this and use it to help other people. And that's where I decided to start talking openly about my own challenges and setbacks and depression and all of this, just to be transparent about my inner world.
Yeah.
And since then, it's been incredible to see the impact on people when you do that. Sharing your inner story allows other people to, I think, make some peace with their story if they have a story that's hurting. And so to your point about this point in time where we're in a resurgence of infections and deaths, there is this opportunity to look deeper. And one of the elements of my model is the first three effects that you learn in magic, the first three kinds of tricks you learn in magic. You learn how to make something appear, like the classic coin from behind someone's ear. Then you learn how to make something disappear. That coin's put it in this hand, it's gone. And then you learn how to restore something. You take some of your clothesline and you cut it in half, and then you make it go back together again. So appear, disappear, and restore have become kind of this central model for my work.
Yeah.
If you want to reboot your life, you want to transform your life, you want to write a new chapter, what do you want to make appear? And what needs to go away? And what do you need to restore? And so in disappear, an element of disappear is looking at the role that fear is playing in your life and how it's influencing you to react to things around you in ways that are not healthy for you or others. And so this is a long way of saying that I think at this point in time, I think fear is at the root of all of the world's problems.
Yeah.
If human beings could muster the courage to look inside at what they're afraid of and how they have chosen the strategies that they have developed, not always necessarily chosen, or at least consciously chosen, but if we could find the courage to get curious about what we're afraid of and how it influences the way we react to the world, we could have breakthroughs that where people would make different choices instead of me having an unconscious fear that compels me to attack you. I might say, okay, yep, there's that reaction that I have when I feel like someone is attacking me, but are they really attacking me? No, they just have a different opinion. So I don't have to react this way. I can see that and I can let that be, but let me just get curious about this. Let me try and understand this other person's point of view before I attack them or start defending my point of view. Let's have a mature, higher level of consciousness experience with each other.
Yeah, well, now that you've summarized my entire business model in like 6 sentences, I think we can wrap up. But I agree completely. I think that we talk about empathy as an intellectual posture and not an emotional reaction. It needs to be how you move through the world, and that reaction is always like when you feel attacked, it's a feeling, not a fact. And yes. How do you, to quote the immortal musical Mean Girls, to how do we ask questions instead of make assumptions? Yes. And what can that look like? I am mindful of time, and we are kind of at the end of what I requested from you. And so I will wrap up here, but Andrew, my mind is blown. My heart is full. This is my favorite kind of interview. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for asking me, Kristen.
Oh man, pals, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, make sure to hit the thumbs up on the old YouTube. I know it may sound super silly, but the algorithm loves it. And when the algorithm loves us, happy things happen for us. So help us help the algorithm. And then if you like these kind of conversations, I have them all the time, not only with other folks from around the world, but also with Dr. Aaron. We talk about curiosity and investigation and empathy and questions in a whole host of topics. And we would love for you to join us on the rest of the channel as well. So subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss a single thing. I am Dr. Kristen Donnelly of the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. My guest today has been the incredible Andrew Bennett. This has been Welcome to My World, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.